And I'm just going to go through what I'm going to talk about and what is the agenda for today. And basically, I'm just going to give a fast introduction about this topic, what I'm talking about. Then I'm going to explain why I'm talking about this. Then we get to the point that is, OK, how do we do this kind of native to unit communication and other way around? And in the end, I want to wrap up with some recommendations. So yeah, and questions if you have any. So yes, the first things first, this talk is about mobile, of course. And this means for us Android and iOS. This also means that it's not about BlackBerry or Windows Phone. And probably if you have one of those devices, you should reconsider your life choices. Just saying. Yeah. And what do I mean with native plugins? Yes, native plugins are all kind of codes that you're going to put on a library that will allow you to do more than what Unity provides to you. So maybe you do some Java code, some Objective-C code, C++, whatever, to get some functionalities that are not there or not there yet, let's say. For instance, if you want to do push notifications for base, if you want to get a share menu on your game, this kind of things, it's not there on Unity or even on Unreal and so on. And sometimes you need native code for that. Most specifically, I'm going to show the examples in Java and Objective-C, but could be any other languages. These ones are the most common ones, and that's why I choose them. And yeah, why? Why I'm talking about this? First, as mentioned before, I want to show how easy it is. There's lots of misconception on this topic that this is something complicated, that you need lots of work, it's hard to do, and this is actually wrong. It's not. It's really simple. And that's one of my main goals here, to break this misunderstanding there. Also, one cool thing is that you can save some money, because there's lots of plugins that are very simple to do, and most people are just buying the plugins instead of doing themselves. And yeah, if you know how to do it, why you should buy something, right? If it's that easy to do. Sometimes it's only 2-3 lines of code, and yeah. Also, I really believe that every mobile developer should know it. And the reason I say that is, yes, we are maybe unit developers, but as a core, we are mobile developers. And you should know how to get everything out of a mobile, not only what Unity provides you or Unreal or any other engine. And I also think it's a very interesting topic. It's something that I love to do. I always making my own plugins and so on. So yeah, I hope you guys also find it interesting. So let's talk a little bit about this communication between the native library and Unity and vice versa. And to do so, let's take a look at some code. Oh. Yeah. So just to give you an idea, I have this very simple project, and the only thing that this project is doing is to have this one button that is just to pick a color, and this will show a native dialog what I want to show. It's very simple, and depending on the choice, this dialog will say, OK, do you want blue or green? And depending on your choice, it will show these squares on the screen there. And the project setup, if I can find my mouse here. Yeah, here. So basically, what's happening? Yeah, so basically that's only one game object, and here I'm calling this the QUO VADIS example game object. I hope you can see it there. And this name is kind of important, so keep in mind the name of this game object. And here the only thing that I have is actually I have my example here. So for now, what I want to show first, I'm going to show and explain all the code, but I want to take a look on this highlighted code here. And this is just one method inside my mono behavior that is my response from native. That's the code, that's the method that my native library will be calling on Unity. And it's pretty simple. It's just receiving one string as parameter. And if the string is green, it's going to just activate the game object green and deactivate the blue, and the other way around for the blue. So now that we have it, and we have a code that is ready for receiving a method that can be called from native, let's do the native code. To do so, the first thing that you have to do is to open your Android Studio and create a new project. And once you created the new project, I cannot see here. Well, yeah, I cannot see there, but doesn't matter. It's on the other screen. What you can do, you're just gonna go on File, New Modulo, and you're gonna say, I want to create. There's the option what you want to create, and then you say, OK, create Android library. Once you set this and start this new library, you're gonna have like this folder structure here. That's the folder structure for my library. And what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna create one class here, and that's my class. This class is very simple. It's also called QUO VADIS example. And it has only one method called pick a color that receives 3 parameters. One string that is the message, and the 2 strings that are options. And what I'm doing next here, and basically this whole part here, is just creating the native dialog. So here's the native code. I just start a dialog builder, and I set my message. So what is the message that came from the parameters? I create 2 buttons here. That is the positive button and negative button, and one will be just writing blue and the other one green. And in the end, I created the dialog and show it. So it's very simple code. As you can see here, that's the whole magic. That's all you need to know in the end. You have this unit.sendMessage, and this works really like the GameObject.sendMessage. The only difference is that it has one more parameter. If you have GameObject.sendMessage, you have the method name, and you have this, the parameter. In this case, you also have to say what is the GameObject name. That's why I said like that you should keep in mind here on your unit, if I can select it here. Oh. Just 1 second here, your game object name, because that's what you're gonna need there. So in this case, it's QUO VADIS example game object, and that's exactly what I have here on the first parameter there. So you must be wondering, yeah, but OK, this is an Android plugin. It's an Android code on the Android Studio. How does it know about unit send message, right? Where this unit player.unit send message come from? And actually, this is something that you have to add. Unit is kind enough to have this on our unit installation. So if I go here on Finder, of course, on Windows will be another path. But if you go to the unit installation folder, if you go to Playback Engine, you go to Android Player, you go to Variations, Mono, Release, and Classes. It's a little bit hidden, but you have this classes.jar file here. And this is the library that unit includes on every build that has this kind of things. And what I'm going to do is just to get this classes.jar, and I'm going to copy this over to my project here. So I put it here. I also renamed it to unit.jar because classes.jar doesn't tell you much. So if you have more libraries there and you have something called classes.jar, you don't know what is this about. So it's just a good practice to also rename this. So now once I add this library there, I can just import the icon.unit 3D player, and then I have all the classes that unit's gonna use it. Another thing that is very important and you should be aware is that when you create your project or your library, it will create the whole structure and it will create a build.gradle file. This build.gradle is your build configuration and how this will be compiled. One thing that is very important, and it's actually the only change that you have to do to start doing a unit plugin, is this line here. What's happening on this line, it's saying, OK, get everything that is inside the libraries folder and put on my library. What I did, I changed from implementation to compile only, because unit will put this classes.jar on the build when you're making your APK anyway. So if you have this on implementation, your library will have these classes, and unit will have these classes, and it will clash. So you get a compile time error saying that you have duplicated methods there. So you just change to compile only, and it's going to say, yeah, well, just use to compile it, but don't include on the library. So that's pretty much it. here, we're going to send the message, and that's all you need to know. The next step, of course, you're going to build. So you can just go here and build the project. And I will not do that now to save time. And once you build, you're going to have this folder created here that is called build. And here you're going to have outputs, and you're going to have this AAR folder where you have your library. So that's it. Our library is ready. What I have to do now is just to copy this file to my Unity. And I'm going to put this inside the plugins, Android, and here is my library. What is also very interesting is that since I put it there, Unity already automatically recognizes that this is an Android plugin and already sets the platform for you here. So you don't have to do anything. Just throw on the folder, and everything is there. So that was how we do on Android. And let's take a look on iOS. It's very similar. Oh, let me just close this. Sorry. Yeah. So the code there is very similar. I just going to create a new project here. It's the same thing. You open Xcode, say new project, choose a static library, and it will give you also this structure here. Here, I'm just creating one method that is called pick native pick color, the same as I did on Android, so pretty similar there, same thing. But here, I'm not using a class. It's just a static C method. And what I'm doing here, it's the same code, but of course for iOS, and this is the code for creating a dialog. So I'm starting the dialog here with the message that came from parameter, and creating 2 buttons, and adding the buttons, and then, of course, displaying this dialog. The first thing that you may notice that is a little bit strange is what are those 3 lines? And the thing is, iOS is a little bit I would say clunky or a little bit annoying sometimes because, for instance, you don't have strings on iOS, on Objective-C at least, right? You have NS strings. You don't have integers. You have NS integers. And Unity will send everything as a char star. That's how it's sending here, as this format. And you have to convert this to an NS integer, so you can use with the iOS class, with the Objective-C classes. So that's what I'm doing, is just a little bit of boilerplate code that you have to do every time. And now I have my classes in the right format. I can just have here on my button the same thing, display my dialog. I can use them. And the annoying thing is, of course, when I'm sending this message back to Unity, I have, again, to convert from an NS string to char star. So basically, that's what I'm doing here. And as you can see here, it's pretty much the same as Android. The same way that you may have wondered where this unit send message came on Android, you should be wondering where it's coming from here. And here, what we do on iOS, we use the extern property. So what I do here in the beginning of the code, I just say, OK, there is an extern void unit send message method. So I'm saying there is this method somewhere in my code. So when I merge this with unit and compile everything, it will find the right method and merge everything together and link everything together. But then you also wonder, like, OK, yeah, nice, but you have to know those methods, right? Where do you know? Because on Android, if you think about it, it's very simple. Once I have import the class, I can just do unit player dot, and then I can get, for instance, the unit send message and everything. But of course, for iOS, I don't have anything imported. I just have an extern. The way to do this is a little bit more complicated, and the same way that you could open get the classes.jar, you can also get the iOS version of this. And to do this, let's go back a little bit here. You also go to your unit installation folder. You go to the playback engine. You go to iOS support. You go to trampoline, classes, Unity. And here, you have this unit interface file. And this unit interface file is basically the main header from Unity that has everything that you're going to need. So this is included. This will be on your final code, on your Xcode project once you build it. So if you take a look on this file, you're going to see that, for instance, you have the unit getGL view, that it would be the same as current activity that we use there. And if you even search here, for instance, you see that you have the method unit send message, you have unit capture screenshots, and so on. So all the resources, all the methods that you want to know and that you need will be here. It's a little bit messy. It's even funny that unit has a to-do here that saying that this needs some cleanup. It's like 400 lines of code with lots of methods that you can use. So you have to take your time there. You have to go, explore a little bit, see what's happening, find the methods, test it. But once you get used to that, it becomes easier to use those things. So yeah, once I'm doing that, the best way, you just go there, copy it over here, and just mark it as extern. Once you're done, same thing, you're just gonna build here, so hit the build button, and it will create your library. Your library will be here, just a .a file. Same thing as Android, just copy this file over to Unity, so it's gonna be here on the assets, plugins, iOS, and then you have it here. So the same magic happens, it already detects that is iOS and mark it for you, so it will be included on your build. So that's how you send the message from native to unit, and and now we have our libraries, everything's in place. How do I call this library? Now I want to use this. I want to call that method to show the dialog. And that is pretty easy, actually. Let's go back here. And that's the other part of my code. So that's the part that is doing this. And a very good practice that I try to maintain and do every time is to first make an interface. Because to call the native library for iOS, you're going to need a code. To call the native library for Android, you need another code. And it's also good to have something for editor, because you want to test, of course, you don't want to test everything on the device all the time. So what I do is just create a simple interface with my methods here. And then I just, on runtime, I decide with the defines which implementation I'm going to use. This also makes it very clear, because you only have this if-defs on one part of your code, and everything else you don't need this anymore. So once it's here, you can just call your interface and call the method there. And let's take a look on the implementation of those methods, of those interface. That's the one for Android, and it's pretty simple. I only need 2 lines, and the first line, I'm doing an Android Java object, a new Android object. And this is just instantiate an object on my library. So I have to say, OK, I want to get this library object that is an Android class that goes by the name, the full name, that is con.qvadis example. And if you look here on my Android code, that's my package name, so con.qvadis and qvadis example. So I just give the full name, and unit will give you an instance of that class. And the next line, what I do, I just call a method there. So I get my instance, my object instance, and call the native pick a color, send my parameters. And that's all you need to do. That will call the native code. That's for Android. Let's take a look on iOS. On iOS, it's pretty much the same with what we had with the unit send message on the native code. We're going to use the external key again, or property again. And what I'm saying here is, somewhere in some library in my code, I'm going to have a native pick color method that receives the 3 strings parameters. And when I call my interface, I'm just going to call this method. There's some boilerplate code that you have to do here also. This DL import, this attribute, is just saying don't mess up with this native pick color name, because you need always do some rename on the methods when compiling. And this is say, OK, keep this name because I need this name to be the same as my library. Once this is done, you just compile your unit project, and the results are, I can show you guys here. See if everything connects. Yeah, OK. So that's my simple application. When I click it, it's going to call the native code. It will create a dialog with the parameters that I sent. So do you prefer green or blue? So green. It sends a message back to unit, and the thing appears there. So the same thing for blue. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's how all the code that you need. We have like our first native dialog plugin. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope it was not too fast or that you guys could get what I'm saying. Also, I would like to give some tips and some recommendations on that. First, always evaluate if worth doing it. Yeah, it's not because you know how to do native plugins now that you should do a native plugin for everything, but there's lots of use cases for that. Other thing is try to use the JSON data. One thing that happens a lot is, I didn't say that before, but if you saw the send message method, it always gets 3 parameters. That is, one, the game object name, the method name, and another string, and that's all you have. So if you want to send an integer, you have to convert to string, and then on the unit side, convert back to integer. It's really clunky. And for this example, of course, it's very simple. It just works. But imagine that you have lots of data to send around. The best approach that I couldn't find out was to have a JSON. So you make it a JSON, send to unit, use the JSON utility, convert your data back. The other thing is unit tests. I should not be needed to say that, but as you saw, there's lots of names there that you have to hard code. What is the name of the method? What is the name of the game object? What is the name of the... Everything is a string, so it's really easy to get lost when you're refactoring. So you change a name, you change the parameter or something, and then suddenly nothing is working because you cannot see the compile time error right away. So you're going to compile, and then it's not running. So unit tests really, really, really saves your life there. The other thing is you can always hook up some post-compiling scripts on Xcode and also on Android Studio with Gradle. And what I always do is set up some scripts that every time you compile your native library, it automatically copies the library file over to unit assets plugins. Because this is really annoying. To every time I fix a bug, I add a new feature, whatever, have to drag the thing around and copy it to the right place. So have some scripts that do that for you. Really saves time. Another thing that you should know, I showed you the send message, but there are other ways of doing this. You can have for instance, pointers on iOS, so you give the pointer create a delegate and send the pointer to the native code and just call it. And you can even implement interfaces also on Android, but they come with some drawbacks. And if you want to know, you can just Google it or ask me later. I'll be around. It's very simple, but there's some issues. But it's not only this solution that I gave is not the only one. You should know it. And my last recommendation is try it. It's really fun. It can be very useful. And it's always, at least for me, exciting to learn a new language and a new way of dealing with these kind of things. And yeah, you should try if you can. And yeah, thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Gabriel Steinkirch, software dev at InnoGames. Thank you so much. That was really insightful. And yes, do we have questions? Don't be shy. There is one. All right, and the second one. You're second.
Hello. You mentioned that for iOS, you prefer to take the lines out of the header that you need and you copy them into the code. Is this preferred by Unity that you do it this way, or is there some way of just including the header file, or are there any drawbacks to doing that way?
The thing is, you cannot include the header file twice. So you can even copy it over to your project and use this on Xcode, so you don't have to do this extern. But then when it's linking, it won't know that it's this extern one. So your library, since it's a compiled one, it needs to know where is this information. So that's why you use the extern. So if you just have the header there, it won't work.
Oh, so in the header file, it wasn't extern, it was just... It was without that? 'Cause I didn't see.
Yeah, it was without extern on the header file.
Okay, okay, that. Okay.
Sorry, it was a little bit fast, I guess.
Okay, now I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We just wanted to see if you like keep an eye on it, you know. All right, the next question.
Hello.
Hello.
You said the parameters are sent via strings. Have you tried?
Can
A little bit louder, please.
The parameters are strings. And have you tried other language codes, like fancy characters from fancy languages? Does this work in all platforms?
I never tried, but I think it's a string. It will really depend on how you encode it in the end, right? So. I guess.
All right, that's the answer we were looking for. Perfect. Do we have any further questions? Don't be shy, it's just us. Gabriel, it looks like we're good to go. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And yes, please put your hands together once more for Gabriel. And thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you very much.
And yes,